Okay, so we're going to continue with some graphing stuff, but it's an exciting lesson because we're going to use something new, which is the TI calculators. Now, if you have like a physical TI-84 calculator, I think that's the easiest to use. I don't think that using the Chromebook is necessarily the easiest choice, but your Chromebook does have the calculator on it. So whatever works for you, that's fine. What I do ask is that you don't use Desmos or a different graphing calculator app, that we are going to use the TI-84. It's something that you can use on SATs in the future. It's not, in my mind, the TI-84 is not quite as straightforward as certain other graphing programs. So that's why we need to practice using it so that we can use that calculator that's allowed on tests later on, that we know where to go and how to use the menus. So we're back to equations and not inequalities. And what we're going to do is we're going to solve the equation, but we're going to let the graphing calculator do the solving piece. So in order to put an equation into the graphing function of a TI calculator, you need to rewrite the equations into y equals. Okay, it has to be in that format. I can't enter the system the way it's written right now, as is. So my first equation, rewriting y equals negative 3y equals negative 2x plus 6, and y equals 2/3 x subtract 2. Okay, so here's the first line I'm going to use. My second equation, rewriting in y equals 3y equals negative 4x plus 12, and y equals negative 4/3 x plus 4. Here's my other equation. Now, all of these directions, just to kind of show you, are on this second page. So you may want to flip your paper open so you can kind of look back and forth. Okay, so I have my equations rewritten. Now, before we pull out the calculator, I'm going to give you some helpful tips, and I may add, sometimes I forget a tip that I usually give, and I may add to this later. But one important thing is that the negative button and subtract button operate differently. Okay, so many times you get an error because you put subtract instead of actually hitting a negative button. So there's a button assigned to making a negative number. Okay, to enter a fraction, use the division button. So for example, that 2/3 that we have up above, I'm going to enter 2 divided by 3. Okay. I feel like normally I have more than just that there. Let's see if I add any as we go. To get the variable x, to get x, use the button next to alpha, which looks like this. It says x t theta n. Okay, this is the button we want. Okay, we're not going to use the alphabet function on our calculator. We're going to use this to put in our variable x. Okay, so now I'm going to open up my calculator. I'm going to switch what I'm sharing. Now my calculator may look a little bit different than yours because I'm not on a Chromebook, so this is the app for a laptop, but overall it should be somewhat similar. So I'm going to stop sharing and reshare my calculator. Okay, so here's my TI calculator. I guess we could add this to helpful tips, but the way that this calculator works is I have my regular buttons here, and everything that's in the blue font above those regular buttons, I can get to by hitting the second button. So I turn it on, and if I wanted to turn it off, I'd hit second on. Sure, I would. This one may not turn off because it's on a computer. And it would turn it off, or it should. Let me try it a different way. If I hit 5, right? But if instead I hit second 5, it gives me L5. Okay, so that was a better example. Okay, so that's kind of how my buttons work on here. We are going to need to use this second button. If I wanted to use the alphabet, that's all the green letters above here, I would have to hit the green alpha button first. But like I said, we're not going to use that. We're going to use this guy, the xt theta n button, to enter in my variable. So looking at what we are going to do next. So we've rewritten our equations into y equals, and all of our graphing functions are in these gray buttons at the top of my calculator. Okay. So is there a way that I can view the, let's just see, I wonder what, that doesn't really help me at all. I was seeing if I can make these bigger. So I want to use these gray buttons. And if you notice all the way to the left, it says y equals. So I'm going to click that y equals. And you'll see there's already some equations in here. To clear out what's in here, there's a clear button underneath the arrows. So I clear, go down and clear, go back up. So these arrows work just as you would think they will. They're going to help you go up, down in your screen. Now what this is for me to enter in as many equations as I want to. So y1 is my first equation, y2 second equation, and I could enter in like 9 equations on this screen. So on my system, I have 2 equations. My first equation was y equals 2/3 x subtract 2. So I have 2 divided by 3. That's how I enter in 2/3. But if you're on a Chromebook, you can also just type like 2/3. And then if you're handheld, you want to hit the xt theta n, or I can just type x. No, I can't. Look at that. I can't type x. Okay, so I don't know if how's your emulator work. So I have to click the xt theta n. That gives me my variable x. And you can start seeing my line is starting to think about like, okay, what's going to happen here? And right now it's just at y equals 2/3. It hasn't done anything yet. And then I have subtract 2. So this is what I mean. Here's my subtract button. Here's something that makes a negative number at the very bottom underneath 3. So I want to subtract 2. Hit enter. And there's my first equation. My second equation, oh, and there, it took a minute to update. There's my equation graphed. Okay, so I'm at -2, slope of 2/3. There's my graph. It even gives me a table, input outputs for that, for y1. So if I put in 2 for x, I get out negative 0.67. If I put in 3, I get out 0, so on. It's giving me a table, it's giving me a graph of what I just typed in. In y2, I'm going to enter in the second equation, which is -4/3. So again, I want to make sure I'm -4/3 x, using xt theta n there, plus 4. And if I hit enter, I think my other line will also show up on my graph, but it's a little bit slow right now. There it is, there it's in my table. There it is on my graph. Okay, so you can see it's graphed my system for me. Now, a few things in terms of adjusting what you're looking at, because we are going to go to our graph in a minute. If I go over, you'll see window. So if I go to this button, that's going to allow me to adjust my window settings. So x min, x max, that's saying that my graph's going from -10 to 10 on the x-axis with a scale of 1. And then it's going from -10 to 10 on the y-axis with a scale of 1. Okay, I sometimes go here to adjust things. I usually just hit zoom, and then there's all sorts of things. I can zoom in or zoom out. I usually hit zoom 6, which gives me a standard viewing window, and it brings me right to my graph. Now, typically, the emulator, I think, is kind of set on a standard viewing window. So you could just have gone to graph, which you can see is all the way over on the right-hand side. But if I need to adjust it, because you have to have that intersection point on the screen, if I need to adjust it, I can do so either in the window and then adjust the actual axes and how much is shown, or I can adjust it under zoom. Okay. So now here comes the solving piece. So now to solve, so let me see, I'm going to share my whole screen. Let's see if I can do this. I don't know if I can. I'm going to try to write down what we have so far, and then I'll go back. So far, what we've done, so we rewrote our equations, then we entered equations into y equals, which is a button on my calculator, into y1 and y2. And now I'm going to go to my graph, and we want to find the intersection point, right? That would be my solution. So to find the intersection point on my graph, the way that we get there, and again, this is all written over here, okay? It says rewrite equations and enter them into y1 and y2. Go to the graph. Then this button here, we're going to hit second calc, which is above trace, second button, calc trace. We want to find the intersection, okay? So we go second, calc trace is the button we want, and option 5, which is intersection. And then you'll see we'll have to go enter, enter, enter. Okay, so now I think I'm sharing my whole screen. Hopefully I am. I feel scared about it. I'm gonna go back. So now we have our graph. We're gonna hit second, and then this is the calc trace button. It's gonna give us options, and we wanna find the intersection. So we're gonna just select 5, and it brings us back to the graph. And then the graph asks, well, is this your first curve? Meaning, is this the first equation you want me to look at? And the way that we say, yes, it is by hitting enter. So we hit enter, and it goes, is this the other one you want me to look at? And you go, yeah, it is. And the way you do that is hitting enter. And then it'll say, would you like me to guess? Meaning, would you like me to find the solution? And I hit enter. And then I'm only done hitting enter when it says intersection at the bottom. And it tells me that those 2 lines intersect at 3, 0. And now I'm done. I have my solution. Okay, so I can go back. Hold on. All right, I can go back and say, well, the solution to this system is 3, 0, and the calculator found it for me. Okay, so we're gonna practice this a few more times. The next page just redoes the instructions again, okay, including going first curve, enter, second curve, enter, guess, enter, boom, there's my intersection point. So let's look at a couple together, and then I'll let you try some on your own. So first thing we need to do is rewrite in y equals. So I'm actually going to I'll do like this one and this one. I'll do kind of some of the more challenging ones. So one nice thing about the calculator is I don't need things to be like in a pretty usable format to graph. Like before, it would have been hard to graph this line and get it perfect and find the perfect intersection point. I no longer really care about things the way I need to enter it because the calculator can figure it out, okay? So this one's already in y equals, so I'll enter this into y1. This one I need to rewrite. And what I mean by I don't care about format anymore because the calculator can figure it out, is when I divide by 3.2, I don't even really care about cleaning that up because the calculator can figure out. So I'm going to leave it like this, 4 over 3.2x. 9.03 over 3.2, and I just leave it. So here's equation 1, and this is what I'm going to enter into y2. I have y1 and y2. And so now I'm going to go to my calculator, and I have my old system in here. So I need to go back to y equals, and I need to use the clear button, which is all the way to the right underneath the gray arrows. I have to clear out what's in here. And then I go back to y1, and I'm going to enter negative. Oops, you gotta be careful there. If you push negative on your keypad, it gives you like the subtraction. So you want to actually go negative, using my negative button here, 0.9x, subtract 1.56. Oops, see, I hit X on my keypad. I need to get better with that. I'm just using the arrows on my keypad to go back and make that X instead. I just wrote over it. And look at me, I even messed that up. Wait, okay. Hit enter. And then my other equation is 4 divided by 3.2 x plus 9.03 divided by 3. Hold on. 4 divided by 3.2 x plus 9.03 divided by 3.2. Okay, there's my second equation. It's taking a minute to update it, but it's there. Just thinking about it. There it is. Let's watch our graph change. There it is. So now I'm going to go to my graph, let my graph load on the big screen. And I want to find the intersection point. So I go second, trace. I want to find the intersection point, which is 5. And I go enter, enter, enter. And we're going to round, it says round to the hundredths place. So I'm going to write my answer here is negative 2.04 rounding and 0.27. I don't have to round that one up. Okay, and there's my solution for that first system that we're looking at. Okay, so let me go back to my page. So what I did is I wrote my X and my Y value rounded to the hundredths place. Okay, there's my answer. Ordered pair where these two lines intersect. So I'm going to look at this fourth one down in the left column. And again, I'm going to rewrite. So this one's already ready to go. This will be what I put in Y1. This equation rewritten would be negative 11 thirds X plus 8 thirds. Here's my Y2. Okay. So now let's go back to our graph. And go back to Y equals and clear out what's in there. And my first equation is 2/4 x subtract 15/6. And my second equation is using the negative button, negative 11 thirds x plus 8 thirds. And I go to my graph. It still hadn't loaded down below, but it'll load as we kind of wait here. Sure, it will. There's my second line. Took a minute. And now I want to find the intersection point. So I go second, calc. I want option 5. Enter, enter, enter. And my intersection point is already to the hundredths place. So I go 1.24, comma, negative 1.88. These are systems we wouldn't be able to solve by graphing by hand, right? We wouldn't be able to be that accurate by hand, and we wouldn't know where it's sitting on the graph. So we need the calculator to solve them. Okay, so what I'm going to ask you to do, it would just be the longest video ever if we did all of these together right now, is so there's a whole bunch here for you to practice. Let me just think, hold on. So I think what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you to try this page. You don't have any homework in terms of the calculator stuff. You have homework of the inequalities and graphing. But I want you to rewrite these. I want you to try to put them into the calculator. And instead of me doing the video and having to, the calculator just takes a while, I'm going to upload the key to this page of notes, and you can kind of cross-reference. And the plan is that tomorrow, Wednesday, we'll all meet together and we'll get to do some more calculator practice where you can kind of work alongside of me And really practice makes perfect here, like knowing where the buttons are and where to click and how different buttons are going to cause errors. And if you're doing this and you're getting errors, that's okay. Okay, circle it and ask me to go over it the next day, and I might be able to even figure out where that error was, or you might see it when I go over it. Okay, so that's the plan for you finishing these notes. So only check the key or have the key out as you go. Check each problem as you put it into the calculator, and we'll talk more about this calculator work when we meet together tomorrow. Okay.